so happy to see the different profiles in here and to see all of you interacting. Please keep that up as we transition to a session that I know is going to change your thinking around event and attendee experience. We have Phil Mershon, the Director of Experience for Social Media Examiner. They do some great events. And I think just even having the title Director of Experience is pretty cool. But he's going to talk to us about his new book. Hi, Phil. How are you?
I'm doing awesome. Thanks for having me.
So excited to have you as our opening keynote. I know that you have a new book coming out called Unforgettable, The Art of Creating Memorable Experiences. So we want to dive into that. I'm going to kind of leave it to you, and I'll be back here in case I heard you might need some help at some point during this. So I'll be here.
Well, right. Yeah. And thank you for the introduction. It's great to be here with everyone. And I love the fact that the profile worked so well. I'm a seeker, and thankfully my session is one that was recommended to me. So it would have been kind of awkward if it hadn't been. So if you're a seeker, you're in the right place. But if you just want to create unforgettable experiences at your event, you're also in the right place. So let's just dive in here. I want to make sure we deliver a lot of value for you. So I will never forget the summer of 2016, back when we went to movies often. Our kids had all become teenagers, so we could leave them at home. And that summer, my wife and I were looking forward to going to two movies. The first, let's see, I've got to get the advancer to show up here. There we go. All right. The first one was The Lost City of Z. And the second one was Rogue One. Now, if you happen to like both of these movies, that's okay. This isn't about that. This is about my experience and not yours. So my experience could not have been any different. The Lost City of Z, well, I was bored. In fact, I left the theater 5 times. I have never done that before or after, except at home when I have a remote control. I was daydreaming. When I left, I went to the bathroom twice. I texted once, and then I was just wandering the halls waiting for my wife to be done because she was actually enjoying the movie. Rogue One, that couldn't have been any more different. I lost track of time. There was no way that I was leaving to go to the bathroom, no matter how badly I might have had to go. And I'm over 50, and so I do have that. I was on the edge of my seat. I could not miss that show. So reflecting back on those two experiences, I asked myself this question: what's the price of boredom? Now, let's be clear. Lost City of Z might not have been boring for everyone. It was for me. It's a metaphor. So let's be clear about that. But I did a little bit of research. Lost City of Z had 1.9 million people attend. That's not bad for a movie, but their budget was $30 million. They lost $11 million. I don't think the CFO was happy, and he probably wouldn't endorse an event like that again. Rogue One, on the other hand, well, they had 100 million people attend by 2019, more by now. Their budget was huge, $200 million. They grossed over $1 billion, 5x return. Your CFO is going to say yes every single time. Now, here's the reality. Most of us are creating experiences at our events that are ultimately going to be forgettable within days or weeks or months. And some of that's just reality. People can't remember everything. We want to avoid those negative, unforgettable experiences, like the naked guy who was taking a bath in the women's bathroom at my event, or like the song that went viral, or like something else. And you could probably name something you wish everyone could forget about your event, right? Can I get an amen in the chat? But we're all striving for those moments about our event that are unforgettable, that get them to remember what we accomplished. And so that's what we're going to do here today. We're going to think about how can we create more unforgettable experiences. And in some cases, how do we get out of our way? To get us started, I'd like to ask you to find a piece of paper. You can use your computer if you want. I think this works better if you write on paper and use pen. And I'm going to give you exactly 1 minute to remember a memorable event experience that you've had, one that you didn't design, one that you weren't involved with planning or producing. It happened at somebody else's event. And let these questions here on the screen inform what you write about. But I just want you to free flow write about that experience and be as descriptive as you can. Don't worry about grammar or anything else. Just write for 1 solid minute, talking about what you were doing, who was there, who were you with, what were you wearing, what were the smells you can remember, what do you hear? Are you ready? Here we go. Here's a little bit of music to help you. The time starts now. All right, Lori, I see your question. This information right now is for you only. You can share it later if you want to, but I want you to keep this event experience in mind. In one word or two word phrases, drop into the chat real quick. What are some of the words that you would use to capture that experience? What's something that the event organizers did that made it unforgettable? Go ahead and in the chat. I know when Ramon was talking earlier, he talked about smell. And smell can be so good. The colors can be good. We've got a Facebook user who says that it was surprising. Something surprising took place. What else would you guys say makes something memorable? While I'm waiting for some of your responses to come in, here are some of the things that I've thought about. We've got some more coming in. Moments of delight. It's engaging. That's awesome. Yeah, and we've got, Ramon talked about being multisensory. I think that is critical to the experience. Another user says joy, energizing, using the senses, personalization. Hey, here we go. You're like reading from my script. So multisensory, I want to just lean in a little bit more to that because sometimes you can use the wrong smell. I was driving down the road recently and I smelled rotten eggs. And that took me immediately back to an experience I had when I was in Kenya back in college, where I was living next to a sugar plantation and they have a refinery and sulfur is used. And I got sick whenever I smelled that. So sometimes you can have a smell that can trigger negative emotions. So be careful. Also be careful about anyone who's got sensitivities. Why is it significant? Liz asked you when you started out today to think about that question. Why is it important that you're here right now? But what can you do at your events to make the event matter? Another thing that makes something memorable is you've created space for those conversations that take something that you planned to go deeper. Have you ever felt like this where time seems to stretch or almost come to a standstill? Like you're in this moment where you realize this is a much more important moment than anything else that could be going on right now. And I hope over the next 3 days, you have one of those spots. One of my grad school professors liked to say, you never know when a 15-minute conversation is going to change your life. And if we do our jobs right, we can create the space for that to happen. And people can literally sense that time lasted longer than the 2 or 3 days that they were with you. Sometimes it's serendipity. You have this meeting like it's going to happen in the networking, perhaps, or happening in the chat right now. You might find someone at this event who becomes a future partner, a future employer, a future employee, just a friend in the industry. Or, as several of you have commented, the unexpected experience. So this is one of our MCs, and he got up and acted like he was Neo from the Matrix as he was introducing a keynote talk. That was a memorable moment that people commented on and shared frequently. And this is him again. He is here sharing the stage with a hula dancer, and he was willing to go the extra mile. This is one of those that's priceless, but maybe he would like to forget that he ever did this. So if you haven't read this book, The Power of Moments, you need to read it. This is a must read for every person in the events industry. They didn't write it specifically for us, but this concept of the power of moments is one we all need to be thinking about. They say not all moments are created equally. And I would add, not all moments are remembered equally. So what they concluded, they did a study on Walt Disney World and the theme park experience that people have. And they found that most people have a very positive experience when they first arrive at the theme park, when they see the princess castle, when they meet one of the costumed characters, they meet a princess, they go on their favorite ride, they see that closing parade. And those memories can overwash those bad experiences, like standing in the long lines, like sweltering in the heat, like having to pay way too much for that hot dog and a Coke. And so they realized that if we put more emphasis on those peak magical moments, we can create a great experience for people. Now, one thing they didn't account for, and I talked to Lee Cockrell, who was COO for decades at the Disney parks. One thing they didn't account for is the details. There are details that Disney pays attention to that other theme parks don't. So you've got to actually have both. For example, they know how far apart to put trash cans, because it can be frustrating to be carrying around your soaking leftover paper from your ice cream cone. So that got me thinking about what are the moments we need to be thinking about as event organizers, planners. And they are the first impressions. When people arrive at your event, that might be at the airport, that might be at the hotel, that might be at your event venue. What is that first impression? It might be the first session they go to or the first party. And then the contour of your event. What are those peak moments? That might again be a party or a networking event or something that you've put a lot of effort, a big unveil or a special entertainment act or a certain keynote speaker that you've brought in. And then a place that I don't feel like most of us spend enough time as event organizers, and that is the last impressions. Here you're going to see a picture of Mark Schaefer. In 2019, he reversed this, because up until 2019, our practice was at the end of the event, we wanted to get a staff picture because we had this really cool backdrop. And so all of our staff would disappear up on the stage and we'd be taking a picture while our guests are standing around. Okay, the event's over. And we realized, no, we need to reverse that. So Mark came to me and said, Phil, how can we create a special moment? We decided to create an indoor fireworks show with confetti. And it was a moment that lasted for 3 minutes, but was shared for weeks and months. You can re-engineer your last impression, but I would argue you also need to think about the brick and mortar. And here's what I mean by that. If you have all these things, your first impressions, your peak moments, and your last impressions stacked together, but they're not held together by the right mortar, and that's the details. That's where Walt Disney World focuses on details like holding the entire experience together. You need to have a thought toward the connector. So that's your MC and your host. That's the greeters in the hallway. That's your staff knowing how to anticipate problems that people are having. So I would love to know how many of you would consider yourself to be an idea factory. You're like Willy Wonka. You've got so many ideas, you don't have budget to do all of your ideas. Or if you're not the idea factory, how many people know somebody on your staff? You've got someone on your team that you just have to kind of almost shut them down. They've got so many ideas. I'm going under the assumption that many of you would consider yourself to be an idea factory. So today, I want to help you with a little bit of a different problem. And that is, I am assuming that you have this incredible experience that's going to be unforgettable that you've designed, but you've got things that are getting in the way of it being remembered. And so we're going to talk a little bit about that. I find it's a lot like the playground merry-go-round. These guys are on TikTok and they are way too big for this merry-go-round. And it's funny, but it's a bad experience because they're being thrown off and thrown in. And that's because there's two forces at play here. And that merry-go-round was not designed for the way they were exerting centripetal and centrifugal forces. And these forces are at play at your event. If one is too strong, it's going to throw you off. If the other's too strong, it's going to push you to the middle. If they're in perfect balance and the perfect speed, it's a very enjoyable, almost unforgettable experience. Here's my fear. Many of us have forces that are working against us, that are undermining the very work and the very experience that we're trying to create. And so today, I want to spend my time focused on those. So they form the word dried, like this dried bread. And dried bread's really only good for croutons and salad and feeding to the birds. Most of us don't like eating it because it makes our mouth go dry. But the words are dullness, and we've already talked a little bit about being boring. Resistance, that means we are holding back, we're reserving judgment, we're critical, we're skeptical. Isolation, we're staying to ourselves. We're not really engaging in the community. Exhaustion, meaning we're either tired or we're overwhelmed and confused. Or squirrel, we're distracted. And those are the forces that are working against us. There's probably others, but they're the 5 that I've noticed the most. And so we're going to talk about how do we turn a dried event into a tasty event. And forgive my clever use of acronyms, and some of these words aren't perfect, but it gets the point across. We want to go from dull to transformative, from resistance to accepting and welcoming and embracing, from isolation to being together and part of the community, from exhaustion to being stimulated and energized, and from being distracted to engaging. Let's start out with this. But as I've been working on this book, Liz mentioned, I've realized there are 25 ways that I can share with you, and I'm going to share a few of them with you here today that help you to create a memorable marketing experience, because let's face it, we are creating marketing experience here. And so the first one is if we use the memory formula, and that is,
hey, Phil.
What?
Phil.
Yeah.
Hey, Phil.
What? Who is that?
Phil, are you really going to do this?
Yeah, of course. This is great stuff.
Dude, this is boring.
All right. We all hate it when a speaker gets up and has a slide that is full of words that are meaningless. And I hope you didn't take a screenshot of that last slide, because it is meaningless and it was boring. And we need to get over creating boring experiences. So I recently asked the all-knowing Facebook, what makes an event boring? And here are some of the things that they had to say. Standing in lines, period. But for the bathroom or for coffee, how could we reinvent those experiences? Maybe there doesn't need to be a line, but maybe we can actually create that into a memorable moment. Maybe not in the bathroom line, but maybe. I don't know. Let's think about it. Bad food. When did we start serving bad food? That's not a good idea. Weak or no coffee. We've got to provide caffeine somehow, some way, whether we are getting it for free or charging for it, it needs to be there. And then, I'm guilty of this one. Speakers who read from their slides. Now, we've all been to those sessions, right? Where they just boringly read from their slides. And then Liz implied this one earlier, that registration, long lines can be one of those moments, but I find the moment after to be one of the most awkward experiences at an event where you've never attended before. I'll share a little bit about that later, but could we reinvent that to make that a highlight moment? And then, who loves being herded from session to session like you're a cow? Like they turn up the music and they are forcing you out of the room and they give you no choice but to move on. That's where this picture of inoculation comes in. If we bore people, we are going to inoculate them. They're not going to have the experience we want, and we are going to get negative reviews or no reviews because they're quietly quitting. Can we say that about events? I think people are doing that. So let's make a commitment to each other. Say this in the chat. Say this to yourself: no more boring, or shall we say no more forgettable events. Let's do that. Let's change the way we do events. All right, so how do we do that? Let's take dullness into transformative. The way we do that is we make it personally meaningful. Mark Schaefer is speaking here to a crowd, and he's talking about how hard it has been during the pandemic and to be a marketer. And a lady in the crowd lets out a deep moan. And he stops the session and says, who did that? And he says, ma'am, you look like you need a hug. And this wasn't awkward. He got off the stage and he went and gave her a shoulder hug. And there was like this collective moment of identifying, we're in this together. Create ownership like Liz did earlier today. Have your MC checking in. How's it going with you? You guys are doing great commenting in the chats here. I can't even keep up with all your comments. This is fantastic. So let's change it from dull to transformative. And one of the ways you do that is you do for one what you wish you could do for everyone. You create personal moments. For example, at our event recently, we had a lady named Ria who was having a bad time, but someone learned it was her birthday. So I got a performer to come and sing happy birthday, literally change the entire experience for her. What I'm going to do right now, I'm going to create a moment right now for one of you. And Liz has identified someone who's going to come on screen with me. So if you would come on screen with me, Liz and Jennifer, I understand that you have had an experience that's memorable. So I'd like you to tell everyone in about 30 seconds about the experience that you wrote about when we had that little exercise a while back.
Yeah. Can you hear me well?
Yes.
So recently I took my husband and I took our kids to Universal, and we're big Harry Potter fans, and just walking in to that experience was just amazing. Really amazing event.
How did it make you feel?
Anytime like our kids are delighted or engaged, it's just kind of magical. And we're a pretty busy family. So having those times to just step away and kind of be in this magical world that we had been, really getting engaged in through movies was just unbelievably magical. And everything about it just was just fun and memorable. And like you said before, I've kind of forgotten the pain of my feet and the expense already. I'm like, let's go again. While I was there, I was like, I'm never doing this again. But then now I'm like, we're going back one day.
Awesome. All right. So Jennifer, this is going to be a gift for you. I'm going to make a song right here and now. It's a one of a kind that will never happen again. Based on what you've just described for me, your universal magical family experience. So here we go.
That's
All right.
amazing.
So I don't do that just to say I can do that. You need, all of us can figure out ways that we can do for somebody something special that we are uniquely able to do that's going to create a special moment within the context of our event that you wish you could do for everyone. Because as you do that repeatedly, it'll create ripple effects and they'll start doing things for others at your event and they'll start talking about it. And it has a profound impact. All right, let's keep going here. We have, I think, like 10 minutes to get through everything else. So I'm going to buckle your seatbelts. Here we go. So we've got Complainer Carol. Complainer Carol came to me at our event one year, and she was definitely resistant. In fact, I think she was on her way out the door because when I asked her how it was going, she said, terrible. None of the speakers know what's going on. Your staff can't help me. I think I wasted my money. I think I'm about to go home. I said, well, hold on a second. What's going on? What are you trying to learn? And she told me what she was trying to learn. And I realized she had just not been to the right sessions. And so I said, here, let me grab a program. And I helped her find 3 sessions. And I said, go sit in the front row. As soon as they're done, I know these 3 speakers can help you with the very questions that you're asking. They have the advanced experience that you're looking for. Changed her event. Jesse Cole, who's speaking on Friday, says this: listen carefully, respond creatively. He got that from someone else. Do that. You can change someone's experience in a minute if you'll listen to what their complaint is and figure out a creative way to solve it. All right, what about isolated Irene? We've all seen her. She's sitting against the wall. She's off in a corner. She's tucking her head inside of her phone. She's not sure she wants to participate. Maybe she's more of an introvert. Maybe she's just shy. Who knows? Well, there's 2 tactics I've got for you. One, here in this picture is Chris Brogan, and Chris is a master at this. He always leaves a spot in the circle. That's why I call it the open circle, where he can invite someone to join the conversation, but he not only creates space for them, he literally invites them and says, hey, Phil, what do you think about this? So that that person feels immediately welcomed in. Another secret tactic comes from one of our MCs, Leslie Samuel, and it goes like this. If you see someone who's feeling isolated, stop, smile, and talk to them. Literally, 9 times out of 10, you're going to find the person is very open to talking. Sometimes they're actually working, but most of the time they're hiding in their work and they're just looking for someone to pursue them. And I think a lot of times as organizers, we get really busy with the work we're doing, so we can train our staff to do this too. It doesn't have to be you, but our staff, if we're on the lookout for those people and inviting them in, it could be the thing that changes their event. It was, I think, in 2016, the first time I went to NAMM. And I don't know if you've been to NAMM. If you have, go ahead and talk in the chat about it. It's an amazing but huge event. 100,000 people went to it pre-pandemic. It's for the music industry. First time I went, I had that experience at registration where I got through the line, had my book, had my badge, had my bag, and I did not know what to do next. And it was overwhelming. That's a huge place, 100,000 square feet at least of display trades floor space. And I became exhausted and I didn't know what to do. Their program was at least 75 pages long. And I decided I was so tired, I was going to go back to my hotel and rest and study the program. Here's the problem with that. My hotel was a mile away. I walked a mile so I could rest. That's kind of silly. So I learned from that experience a couple of things. I'm going to create a quiet zone so people, if they need to rest, they can go do that. I'm going to have a new attendee orientation where I can help people get a lay of the land before they ever get there. And they may have done this at NAM. I don't know. I probably missed it. I'm going to have concierges who their job is to help people select the right sessions. And I'm also going to say, you know what? You may have FOMO, but it's okay. You don't have to go from 6 a.m. networking walk till the 1 a.m. after party after the after party. It's okay to skip some things. You don't have to do it all. But the biggest opportunity I saw is to have clear communication. Make it really easy for people to choose what their path is going to be. It was the summer of 2019, and for my daughter's birthday, we went to see Hamilton in Oklahoma City. She was a huge fan, had the whole score memorized. We drove down, walked in. It was amazing. The energy at a musical, I've never experienced anything like it. People were taking selfies up in the theater. That doesn't happen at musicals. And then it started, and it was amazing. It just, started with a bang. The music, the dancing, the costumes, the set designs, the lighting, it was all stellar. And it reached this really poignant moment in the first act. And then I call her Lizzie. She pulled out her phone and she took that picture with a flash. And instantly my mind is looking up and I'm thinking, is she going to do it again? Are they going to come and take her away? What's going to happen? And then I looked and the actors had not blinked. They had kept going. They say at UC Berkeley that it takes 23 minutes for you to regain a state of focus after it's lost. Well, in this case, it was between 3 and 5 minutes, and I was completely re-engaged with the show, loved it. I didn't remember Lizzie, and that's a made-up name. Who knows, man or woman, whatever. I had not remembered that anymore, but it's true. At our events, people are getting distracted by things, and they're going to get distracted. And here's a couple of ways that we can overcome that. One is you need speakers who know the 7-minute rule. And that means every 7 minutes, you need to be mixing up your medium. You've noticed I've been telling a lot of stories, and that's one way. A mix of medium could be videos. It could be getting people engaged in the audience, but you guys are doing amazing with that. You also need an MC who can handle the unexpected, like when technology doesn't work, like when there's somebody in the audience who is being disruptive, like when you don't know what's going to happen. You need someone like Ramon. Here's what I would say. If you want an event to be boring, grab someone in the hall last minute, one of your junior volunteers, and say, hey, can you go introduce this speaker? That's bound to be a terrible experience. I've had it happen. I would rather you just didn't introduce me and let me introduce myself if you're not going to put the time into creating a great experience. Your MCs, like Ramon said, are your friends. And then I would also encourage you to think about the musicology of your event. This is a new concept to me, but a friend said, what if you could get Hans Zimmer or John Williams to write the musical score for your event? What would they do? How, if they were approaching it like it was a film score, what kinds of things would they think about? And they would think about the psychographics of your event, like who are the people coming and what kind of music connects with them in the way that you want to connect? What are the goals of your event? Look at those peak moments and how can music enhance those? Look at the circadian rhythms, morning versus noon versus night. People's energy levels are changing throughout the day. Music can enhance or distract from that. And then create a scene by scene plan. In a movie, for a film score, it's actually second by second. But I think for events, we can go scene by scene, session by session. But think about what kind of music is going to best enhance this. Here's what John Vitale, an event musicologist, said to me last week. He said, event producers often leave music as a last minute item for their AV provider to figure out. Why do that? Music is one of the most effective ways to connect emotionally with the attendees and supercharge each module, dare I say, scene of your event. All right, go ahead and in the chat. We've talked about 5 different threats of events. Which one do you think you need to solve? Is it dullness? Is it resistance? Is it isolation, exhaustion, or distraction? go ahead and tell me. I was going to run a poll, but it wasn't easy to do the tech. So one of you tech people, next time I do this, will be able to help me figure that out. StreamYard doesn't make that super easy. And I would love to know, while you're answering that question, I'm going to tell you one last story. So in 2016, the way we solved this is we were moving from a single hotel to a citywide event. And we recognized people might get exhausted. They might want to go back to their hotel. And we feared they wouldn't return to the event if they did. So we said, well, what are the reasons they would go back to their hotel? Well, there were three. One is they might need to go back and get some work done. The second is they might want to go back and rest. And the third is they're networking a lot. They may need to brush their teeth. So we solved it by saying, well, let's create lots of different places you can work. Let's make sure we've got a quiet zone where you can rest. And then this is Marlene from Denmark. She helped us answer our third. She came up to the information desk and she said, hey, can you point me to a local pharmacy? I forgot my toothbrush and I need to get a toothbrush because I don't want to scare people with my breath. Well, the team was able to say, well, I've got one better. Follow me. And one of the ladies led her to the women's bathroom and said, see here, we've got a basket with toothbrushes and toothpaste and floss and mouthwash. You don't have to leave. You can keep on learning and networking all day long. Now, Marlene was blown away. Marlene said, man, if they thought about that detail, what else have they thought about? I'm buying my ticket right now. And then she went home and she started telling her friends. Now 4 or 5 of her friends have come to the event. A $3 investment turned into multi-thousands of dollars of return on investment, all because we thought about the toothbrush moment. So what is your toothbrush moment? What is that moment that could cause people to derail, that if you got creative, you could turn that experience around? Think about that. Maybe share that in the link where we're putting some of our learnings from the event. It's been my pleasure to be here with you today. I am Phil Mershon. I'd love to see you. If you're interested, come out to social media marketing world. We always are looking for event profs to be volunteers. And if you'd like the first chapter of my book and to be notified when it comes out, drop me an email with the subject line Unforgettable. And if you have other questions about our event or anything with our company, that's the email. Take a screenshot. These are all the places on social you can find me. And Liz, I'm a little bit long, but thank you for letting me be here.
Thank you so much. I don't know if anyone else got the chills when you did your saxophone piece. I don't know why Lizzie had to be the name, though, for Hamilton. But
I'm sorry about that. I'm sorry about that.
It's okay. It's okay. So glad that you shared all of that. And we can't wait for your book to come out. We were hoping that we could share it with everyone at techsytalk, but I know it's not quite out yet, but definitely get that first chapter. We don't have a ton of time for questions, but there was one that I wanted to just get your thoughts on, which Chloe wants to know. How do you address isolation in virtual events, especially? Any thoughts on that? And I think we can talk more about this in our networking too.
Yeah, we should definitely keep talking about it and see what others have done. The hard part there is you can't see them being isolated, right? So that's the biggest trick. And I was also going to talk about the quiet quitters at your event. You don't know who those people are and why they're leaving because they didn't ever tell you. But I think the more you can do at virtual events to engage people early, I know that was talked about even previously with Ramon today, the more reasons that you can give people to engage and make it a safe place and make it someplace that they realize these are my people, the more likely they are. It's a lot harder when people are multitasking, to get them to be fully present, fully engaged with your event. So I think we have to work harder, but it really comes down to that personal reason and getting wins early. The more things you can do to get people to give it a try. I think you have to make it super easy to step into the community early, and then you'll see more success. It's not going to be the same as the physical, at least in my experience. I don't know if we'll ever fully overcome that just because of the psychological barrier that's there, but maybe there's other thoughts on that we'll hear later.
That was great. And thank you so much for sharing that. Let's definitely keep the conversation going in our networking that we have at the end of today's sessions. And lots of great comments on the chat. So please keep those coming in. On the private chat side here in StreamYard, someone said, Phil is the man, rock star. So since I can't put that on stage, I had to just shout it out here. Okay, Phil, that was amazing.